Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Sideline, a podcast where we talk about the latest sports stories in pro sports as well as college, and we give our opinions as fans watching from Beyond the Sideline. It is now officially double digit episode time. This is episode 10. Very exciting stuff. Um, Never thought we'd get to episode 10. Never thought I'd see the light of day in double digits in terms of episodes. But we're here. And this episode, we're going to mainly focus on the NFL draft as it just ended this past Saturday as we are recording April 30th, Wednesday. So we've had time to process the NFL draft as well as the rest of the sports. But before we get into that, few things I want to talk about in terms of other sports. First of which being the NBA. And the first thing I want to talk about is Los Angeles Lakers. They find themselves down 3-1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves after blowing, I believe, it was a 16-point in game 4 in Minnesota. A lot of people have been saying that can the Lakers pull it off? I believe they have a 70% chance, which is today at 7. It's currently 12 o'clock. See results in like 9 hours. But Jake, do you think that LeBron can pull off another 3-1 lead or a
I
3-1 comeback?
I mean, it's so tough because that's asking a lot of anyone, let alone a freaking 40-year-old. But I think, talent-wise, they're still there. They're right there. I mean, what kills is that, even in game 3, they ended up losing by 12, but they really were winning. There was 4 minutes to go in that game as well. So it's just, if you look at the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter in games 3 and 4, those are both games that you probably should have won if you're the Lakers. And Luka has like 0 points, I believe, in the last 4 minutes, the last 2 games. Whereas Anthony Edwards has been going absolutely off. He's going crazy. So it's going to take, I think just different schemes and figuring out. It's going to take Luka stepping up because LeBron's been awesome and he's been doing everything he can, but he's kind of, I think, purposefully stepped back offensively in the last few minutes of these games to focus on defense, hoping that Luka can take over offensively, and it just hasn't happened yet. So I think Luka is the key here, and they need him to be who he can be and kind of take over the last couple minutes of games. Because if they can just get that fourth quarter figured out, they've been the better team for most of the series. So I think they can definitely do it. I think it's absolutely in the cards. I think they win tonight, and then they have a little momentum, but I give them like a 10% chance.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to this about many people already, but I've been saying I don't mind being down 3-1 in LA. I think we have a really good shot at winning Game 5, especially it being at home. I don't like being down 3-2 going back to Minnesota. That's the
Yeah,
game that's up in the air. I think if you pull that one out, you have everything going forth in
yeah. I
pulling
think if
off
you
the
can get it
comeback.
to a game 7, you feel really good.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, Anthony Edwards has just been on a tear, and it also doesn't help when you have like more than 15 turnovers in the game. You're
Mm-hmm.
blowing the lead with like 5 minutes left. But honestly, I'm not surprised. If you look at last year's first round matchup against the Nuggets when the Lakers played them as a 7 seed, they throughout that series, if you look at the stats, the Lakers led for like 95%
Yeah,
of that series. The
yeah.
Nuggets had not led for more than I think 20-25 minutes across total playtime. The
Yep.
Lakers had multiple 20 plus point leads, 15 plus point leads, and they blew them. So it's like I'm used
What do
to
you
it
think?
by
Because
now.
obviously they have a different coach. They have, besides LeBron, a pretty different team. Like,
Yeah.
yet it's happening all over again. Like, what? How does that happen? Like, that
I
doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it does. I love JJ Redick as a coach, but it just seems like he's relying too heavily on his key players. I mean, we saw it in game 4. In the second half, he literally played the same rotation. He
Yeah.
didn't sub out anyone. which I don't mind that lineup. But I mean, when you have guys like Dalton Connect on the bench, Jared Vanderbilt, who can go out there and get some crucial rebounds and play some good defense, Gabe Vincent, who can play decent defense on the wings and get you a corner three. Guy like Jackson Hayes, he hasn't been good in the playoffs, but he can go out there and provide some size, especially against a guy like Rudy Gobert. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think JJ Redick built for the playoffs yet. If he can come back from a 3-1 lead, that will prove to me that will show me that he can be the guy to lead this
Okay.
team to victory. But if the Lakers end up losing in this first round, I think it's going to be a welcome to the playoffs moment for
Yeah.
JJ Redick. I just don't think he's at that level yet to coach in playoff atmosphere, especially
Yeah. I
against
mean,
a
it's
team like Minnesota.
yeah, absolutely. It's difficult, right? And Minnesota, some vets, but then you have a guy like Anthony. Obviously, they were just in the Western Conference Finals last
Yeah,
year because of a magical Anthony Edwards run. So even though the Lakers, were certainly favored coming into the series, like they were so close throughout the regular season, so little games separated these two teams, and like obviously Minnesota was just there. And you factor in the rookie head coach. It's not easy. It's not easy to do it in the playoffs. Totally different ball game.
yeah. I mean, it's almost reminiscent of Darvin Ham in a way in terms of lineups. A lot of people hated Darvin Ham as a head coach for the Lakers because his lineups were terrible. He didn't mesh well.
Yeah.
He always played the same guys, made
Yeah.
minimal
Yeah.
substitutions. So we're going down that same path, but I don't in the same situation as we were
Yeah.
with Darvin Ham.
And it's funny because like when the Luka trade happened, I think the big like the takeaway from the Lakers side was like, all right, well we're set up for the future now. Like,
Yeah,
this year probably isn't a win at all kind of year. It's not a win now move. This is for next year, a
yeah.
couple of years post LeBron. But then obviously they had a lot of success to end the regular season, and then people are like, all right, well maybe this is the year. But it's funny how expectations shift because just a couple months ago, this kind of was the expectation. Maybe you get to the playoffs and then you kind of wrap it up there and you look towards the future. But it's just now that you're here and you ended up being the 3 seed, you want to get to that next level already.
No, yeah, and I mean, I really think the Lakers can make it to the finals and have the chance to win. I think it's going to be a Lakers Celtics final. I think it goes to 7. But I mean, with the way it is now, if the Lakers struggle, if they end up pulling out the comeback, and they're most likely going to have to play the Warriors. That's another like I mean, it's the Warriors. The Warriors are hot. Jimmy Butler's been playing great. Stephen Curry's going to be Stephen Curry. Draymond's
Mm-hmm.
going to be Draymond. That's that's a different level of competition than the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, it's a lot of younger guys. They've seen 5 6 years already. You got guys like Julius Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Jaden McDaniels, but then you go to the Warriors, who have a lot of veterans. Buddy
Yeah.
Hield, Draymond, Jimmy, Steph. Who else? Forgetting his name. Center. I forget his name. Um,
On the tip of your tongue.
yeah, it's right there. Hold on, I'm looking it up because I can't. Here's center. Kevon Looney. Him.
Okay. Yeah.
Him. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Like you got guys like that who are just they know their role. They've been in this Steve Kerr system since like 2014, 2015 started doing well and winning. I mean, if the Lakers are playing the way they are now, off the comeback, still play the same way against the Warriors, I don't know if we can make it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the other thing is if starting today, if the Lakers keep winning, the schedule is they play every other day from here on out through that Warriors series. And like you mentioned, the way that JJ is playing his guys for the entirety of the second half, like it's a very, very short rotation right now. It just doesn't bode well. If they do make it to that next round, like they have to go every other day and they are playing so many minutes. Again, LeBron is superhuman, but he is 40. Like
Yeah.
it's not like ideally that's not what you want. So they're not set up particularly well right now, and they're going to have to play a different style if they kind of want to get there.
Yeah, I completely. But let's shift a little bit. There are a couple other series I want to touch on just a little bit. The Pistons have now made this Knicks series pretty interesting. They just won a nail biter of a game. They now force a game 6, going back to Detroit, which is huge for them. Um, do we think that the Pistons have a chance to pull off the 3-1 comeback? I don't know.
Last week I said Knicks in 6, maybe 7. I'm sticking to that. I'm pretty confident in my Knicks. I think I think they do just have the talent. I think the Pistons are awesome and they're scrappy and they are a really good team. But I just don't think they have it this year to win 2 more games. That said, I mean, we have been blessed with some seriously great playoff basketball. This
Yeah.
Knicks, I mean, this series alone, it was, I think, like a 10-point game, game 1. But then since then, game 2 is a 6-point game. Game 3, 2-point game. Game 4, 1-point game. And then game 5, 3-point game. I mean, it's insane. Not to mention some of the other series. I mean, see the Lakers, Timberwolves, like we just mentioned, have been great games too. But just like there are a couple Bucks Pacers games, the Nuggets. I mean, just incredible playoff basketball. One tight game after another. So really excited. But yeah, I'm sticking with my Knicks in 6, I think.
Okay, and the last series I wanted to talk about, you just mentioned quickly, the Nuggets Clippers series. The Nuggets won. I think I think this is the first game in the series where it's been somewhat of a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Every other game has been single digits. It's been very close. Their Clippers are going back to LA now to play in the Intuit Dome for game 6. So they have the fans on their side there. I think it can be a game 7. But honestly, this series is so up in the air. Because I think Denver can easily win in LA. I also think LA can easily win 2 in a row. Especially
Yep.
the game 7 in Denver.
It's felt like from that very first game that this was bound to go 7, just with how these teams match up against each other and how tight they've been playing. Like it's felt like this was always going to go to 7. So I think the Clippers take care of business at home, and then we get a game 7. But I do really like the way the Nuggets are playing right now. Guys are stepping up. So I think I'd have the Nuggets in 7. I think I have the home team winning these last 2 games. But you're right, Ace. I mean, it's a total coin flip. Both of these games, like just one fantastic basketball game after another. The Nuggets, after that, that was the craziest buzzer beater. I mean, that Aaron
Oh
Gordon
yeah, that was
dunk
crazy.
as time ran out. They certainly got that momentum on their side. Then the 16-point win, they kind of cruised to it. So they got a lot of things going for them. So then I wouldn't be too surprised if they keep that momentum, win 3 in a row, and take the series. But it's anyone's series.
All right, we're going to stick with basketball, but move over to college basketball now. I know the season has already been long over, but ESPN just came out with their way too early bracket predictions for the 2026 tournament season. And there is a team that we all know very well here in the Santa Barbara area, the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos. ESPN projects them to be 13th seed South region, going up against the 4th seeded USC Trojan.
So excited. That game would be played in San Diego. Obviously, so a lot of ifs, but I would be going to that game no matter what. I'd find a way.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think this is the right call. I think at this moment in time, it is very hard to pick against the Gauchos to win the Big West next year. They just signed the last 2 days. They've had 2 awesome signings in Osana Kitenge and Aiden Mahaney. Kitenge, that 4-5 guy that they desperately needed. I think there's still some front court depth problems that they could address. They have like one more roster spot, but Kitenge answers a lot of questions. And then Aiden Mahaney is, I think, the best prospect now in the Big West. Like, I think he's in the running for Big West Player of the Year. He had 2 fabulous seasons, averaging 14 points a game at St. Mary's. Then he goes to UConn, sits on the bench for most of the time, so didn't get to see a lot of action, but now he wants to kind of come back and be the guy. I'm really excited. I mean, now you have a really solid roster. You have And one thing that I really like is you have three transfers who I think all are going to make an impact, three freshmen who could see the court, and then four returners who you have a lot of faith in. That's a really nice mix for a rotation, especially because in the Big West, there's so little continuity this year. I mean, everybody got just dismantled, except the Gauchos, returning four. They're going to have like the most returning production in the entire league. So I think they have between the most returning production, between the best talent, and a coach that's been there before. I really like the Gauchos as a pick to come out of the Big West.
Yeah, but now the question for the Gauchos is who's going to be your starters? Because
Yep.
now with all before these transfers happened, even when we got Utah guy,
Mira Little, yeah.
yeah, when we got him, there was still already kind of we could project a definitive starting lineup, but now with Haney and Katanga, it's up in the air now. I mean, do you
Yeah.
start? We've been talking about this at KCSB. We need Pasternak needs that veteran point guard. They
Yeah.
got him in Mahaney. Start him, or do you give him a more elevated Ben Schultzberg role? Like he comes off the bench as a six man, and then maybe you start Zion Sensley, or is Zion Sensley your six man? There's a lot of questions now.
Yeah. So I think the really interesting thing is there's right now there's like 11 guys that could be in this rotation. It's ZZ Clark, Mira Little, CJ Shaw, Luke Zufalato, Aiden Mahaney, Jason Fontenette, Zion Sensley, Colin Smith, Michael Simcoe, Hosanna Katanga, and KK Top. That's 11 guys. Out of those 11, 7 are listed as guards. That's Sensley, Fontenette, Mahaney, Zufalato, Shaw, Little, and Clark. That's a lot of guards. Now, I think as a result of that, Fontenette and Sensley will effectively have to be forwards this year. Maybe Fontenette plays a little bit of the two, but I think those guys will be your 3 and 4. My starting 5, I think Mahaney has to be your starting point guard. He's got the experience. He's done it in the West Coast Conference. I think he's going to be your 1. I think this is when it gets a little, difficult. I think Katenge is definitely your 5. I really like that, and it's really not another option. I think KK's got to come off the bench. I think Katenge is your 5, so you got your 1 and your 5. I think Colin Smith has to be your 4. He's got to be in there. He was really good this year when he was healthy. I think Fontenette has to be in there at the 2 or the 3, and then that leaves one spot for either Zion Sensley, ZZ Clark, or Mira Little, and I think that goes to Zion. So I think it's Mahaney, Fontenette, Sensley, Smith, and Katenge. And as a result, because Katenge is only like 6'8", he needs to be a smaller center. I think getting Zion in there, who's also 6'8", helps you a lot. So then you have 3 guys who are 6'8", and you can kind of rotate out and provide help on those boards. So I think that's what I would run with. But then you have multiple guards on your bench in Mira Little and ZZ Clark, who are kind of similar players, maybe. So it's a lot to figure out. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does, but I'm excited. They got a lot of talent now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who can be on the bench that can be starters, a lot of starters that could be bench guys like Little. I think Little can easily be a starter on this team.
Yeah,
but
totally.
would he be better coming off the bench as like a 6-man? Zion has definitely a spot as a starter, but do you like him coming 6-man? Same with the incoming freshman, especially the hometown kid, Luke Falato. He's a 6'6" guard, so he can easily play that small forward position if he builds a little bit of muscle. I think he can be a starter. I think he can also do a bench. So, like you said, there's a lot of questions that Pasternak has to answer, not only by himself, but with his coaching staff on who's going to be right. I think it's going to be a feel out process, especially in like a month. It's probably going to try out a lot of lineups early season. And then once Big West Conference play starts, we'll start to see more and how deep we go in the bench.
I totally agree.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, I kind of see Luke Zefalato as like a Dalton Connect in a way. He can get you a more physical Dalton Connect. He can play on the perimeter really well. He can shoot the 3. Not the best defender, but also not the worst. He can play wing really well. He can put him in the post, but obviously way more of a scorer.
Yeah, here's the only thing I'll say to that, Angel. I do think just knowing who Coach Pasternak is, he doesn't really like to play his freshmen a whole
Yeah.
lot. We saw it last year with ZZ, who was, I think, a much better prospect than a guy like Luke Zuflato. And ZZ got into the game, very first game of the season, for a couple minutes and didn't see the court the rest of the time, even though there were a lot of injuries and he was a really highly ranked prospect. So I, I'm almost assuming that none of the freshmen are going to get significant playing time
Yeah.
heading into next season, and or at least when you start Big West play, because that still gets you a rotation of 8 guys, providing everybody's healthy. You still have a rotation that's 8 deep, and then you have 3 freshmen on the bench, which I think is kind of what I would imagine to be. And then maybe, an injury happens, this happens. I could see Michael Simcoe getting time, actually, for sure, because, again, mentioned that front court depth. Colin Smith is a true 4. Katenge is a 4-5. KK is a 5. That's it. Like, maybe Sensley could play bigger, but he played much more like a guard last year. So I think if any of those guys gets hurt, it has to be Simcoe getting a lot of time. And I think Simcoe would get that time over Zuflato. I think he's just a better prospect, a little more highly ranked out of high school. But yeah, that's my big Joe Pasternak asterisk, because he just doesn't love to play his freshmen. He really likes to get them into the system and slow play things. But I think a lot of it is going to kind of work itself out with injuries and stuff. We saw a lot of that last year. Not wishing injuries on anyone, but it just kind of always sorts itself out a little bit where, maybe one guy goes down and you just kind of have your rotation and it settles in a little bit. So I totally agree with you. I think it's going to be feeling out a bunch of different rotations early on. And then by the time Big West play comes, it'll be a little tighter, closer to 8 or 9 guys.
Yeah, and going back to the Pasternak, I think he said it himself when he first came UC Santa Barbara basketball head. He said that he doesn't want to be like other top programs, like your 4 or 5 star recruits, like 10 to 15 minutes a game. Uh, I mean, Zion did play that later on in the season, but I think he only did that just so he wouldn't transfer.
Yeah. Well, I think it does say a lot that a guy like ZZ Clark was able to be on the bench the entire year and he didn't transfer. Like, I think that speaks volumes about who Pasternak is as a head coach and this program. Like, because ZZ, to me, like a great prospect coming out of high school, but didn't get any playing time out of college like UCSB. He was a prime prospect to transfer. So the fact that he didn't, that bodes super well, and leads me to believe that some of these other prospects, that these incoming freshmen would also sit for a while.
Yeah, and I think one of the, obviously I keep mentioning Luke Zefalata, but I don't think he's transferring. He's obviously the hometown kid playing for his hometown team. I think he's gonna be staying here all 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't see him transferring unless he has some stellar 35 points a game season and like Duke wants him. Then yeah, I see him leaving to a Power 4 school. But I see even the other freshmen, I see them staying. Like, and I think,
I agree.
Like you said, it's a testament to who Joe Pasternak is as a coach. He wants to not play his freshmen so they can learn from these other vets that are playing. So then when it's their time to shine, they get the minutes and they know how to play in that system. And then it shows how loyal are themselves. Because if like ZZ Clark only played like 5-7 minutes on the season, still decided to stay, shows who ZZ Clark is, not only as a player but as a person.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to touch on, speaking to that, is that throughout the entire regular season and in his final press conference, Pasternak said time and time again, like, it's so hard in this college landscape now with NIL and transfer portal to like get guys to stay and build a team. And he kept looking at UC San Diego, which had the same guys. They brought in transfers when they were younger, kept them for 2 or 3 years, and it all came together. He's like, that's the plan. That's what I want to do. That's what he's done now. Like, this year, their current roster only has 3 seniors. It's KK, it's Katenge, and then Colin Smith. Everybody else is a junior or younger. So all the transfers he's brought in, like a Mahaney is a junior. he's brought these guys in with the hope that they can play this year and next year, maybe longer. So he's kind of done exactly what he's set out wanting to do, which I'm really excited about. So I think not only the fact that we could talk about, I think, a run to the tournament this season, but he set himself up for the next couple of years now.
Yeah, and I mean, look at from the team this past year, like almost like everyone was a senior. So
Yeah.
you have to rebuild the entire squad. Obviously, you're gonna look for those juniors and sophomores coming in because you want to build the pro, want to build off of them. It, I mean, you can even see that in high school. I mean, it happened at my high school. We had a program for varsity where it was a lot of sophomores, juniors. But then by the time you got them to a couple of years later, it was like all seniors. And then you have to rebuild. So I think that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the same way UCSB is going. You have that one big senior chunk, and then you go to a little bit of a rebuild. You get guys in from the transfer portal. Your freshmen are becoming sophomores. Sophomores who got great playing time. A guy like Jason Fontenette is now
Yep.
becoming a junior, stepping into his own, and you rebuild from there. And now you have a great program for a few years to come. Then everyone's going to be a senior. They're all going to leave, and you restart that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it totally could work.
Yeah. So let's stick with college, but let's go to baseball just for a little bit before we get to the draft. I just want to talk about UCSB baseball. They had a bit of a rough weekend in San Diego. Lost the series to UCSD. Did they lose against UCSD?
No, thankfully they lost. They beat San Diego. They beat U
Okay.
San Diego, but on Monday. But yeah,
So
rough
they went
weekend.
so they went 2-2 in San Diego with
Mm-hmm.
one of which against UCSD they lost the series to, which is not good if you're the Gauchos. They are now 69th in RPI, so they keep falling, which isn't good, and they are now projected to be next four out
Mm-hmm.
tournament projection. So they're still in the bubble, but not in a spot where they want to be. They're in a weird like limbo because
Yeah,
they do good, they creep up, then they go on a streak where they lose, drop back down. They're in a very weird spot, and it makes me feel like if they don't win like almost every game from here on out, they got USC next week. They have Fullerton. I think Fullerton is this week, this
yep,
weekend.
yep. This weekend.
They're at Fullerton, and then they play USC here. Then they're at Loyola Marymount for a game, and they come back and finish the series here. Then you have Cal State Bakersfield. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't win almost every single game, I don't know if you can sneak into the tournament as a bubble team. I think now they have to rely on the conference.
Yeah, it's what a frustrating weekend to drop to a UC San Diego team that is fifth in the Big West, but is just so far below the talent level of this Gaucho squad, and that is such a killer. So I think, yeah, this next week. You got the three at Fullerton, who is second right now, or third in the Big West. They've been a really good team. They're close in RPI to the Gauchos. And then it's USC, who's a top 40 team in RPI. This next 6 days, if you win three, then I think you feel much better because LMU and Bakersfield don't scare me at all. I think out of those six, there's no reason why you can't win five. They're at a level much below UC San Diego even. So I think I can write in five of six wins there. It's just a matter of, they have to go on the road and play a good Fullerton team, and then they host a really solid USC team. They have to win three of those games if they want to stay in the bubble and have a shot. What's so frustrating now is that, if you go and lose 2 out of 3 to Fullerton, you might not even make the Big West tournament, let alone NCAA. And I mean, that would be such a giant disappointment. To be 13-11 and 11 conference losses in the Big West when there's really only two or three teams that kind of sort of scare you, that's a huge disappointment for me. And again, like they still have a top 10 ERA in baseball. And you have some individual performances from hitters that have been awesome. Nate Vargas is on a 9 game hitting streak where he has 5 home runs in those 9 games. He's on fire. Latrell McCullum has been incredible this whole season, got a 1 OPS, and he's hitting just about 360 or something like that. And you look at all those individual performances, and it's just they can't win. They can't put it all together somehow. I think like the Tyler Bremner problem is just a bigger UCSB problem this year, where it's like he's got incredible under the hood numbers, best strikeout rate in the Big West, best walk rate in the Big West, an incredible fit, but all of his hits come at the same time, and he's 3-4 in his record. And even though he's got all these incredible numbers, he hasn't really done very well. So it's just it's very frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, I thought that the Gauchos would pick up right where they left off
Mm-hmm.
from hosting region. I think they would be like a step down, but I still thought they'd be a powerhouse in the Big West. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that skid they went on like midway through the season really
brutal.
hurt them.
Yeah.
And
Now
now,
there's no room for error like
yeah,
they lost this weekend.
no, yeah, now it's full steam ahead. You have to, I mean, if you don't do well at Fullerton, I think, yeah, you missed a conference tournament, which sucks to say, but if you do win the series against Fullerton, I think you still have a chance of being in the tournament, but now all eyes are set on the tournament.
Yeah.
I don't
Here's a
I don't
question
think
for you,
there's any other
Angel.
way.
If the Gauchos are a 4 or 5 seed, which right now they're the 4, um, and you'd have to play a 1 game elimination game to get into the round robin. Who pitches? Is it Bremner, or is it because he's like a top 10 prospect in the MLB draft and he's still Tyler Bremner? Is it Prosky, who's objectively been way better? Is it Jackson Flora, who's the hottest pitcher in the Big West right now? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a hard question because if you throw your ace in Tyler Bremner, then you don't have him when the round robin starts. If you throw Calvin Prosky, who has definitively, although he's not your ace, he's your second day starter, been your best pitcher in terms of stats and numbers, you don't
Yeah.
have him for the round robin. If you throw out Jackson Flora, who's like you said been the hottest pitcher in the Big West, you won't have him for the round robin. So it's like you will have two of your three. Which one are you okay with losing? I'm not okay with losing any of them. But then
Yeah.
if you go into like your farm system, into your pitching staff, do you trust your other guys? Do you trust your midweek starters? I'm not saying they're bad. I just don't know if I trust them in a single elimination game that matters so much.
Yeah, no, I think you have to throw out one of your big three. You have to. And I think maybe the easiest way to do it is to say Bremner's going to go because he hasn't been he hasn't had too much success, but he's still your ace. So you can save face. You can put Bremner out there, but then you still have two pitchers who have been better than him for the first 2 games of the round robin. And you hope that you win both of those 2 games and you're in the final. And you can afford to lose a game and have Bremner back. Maybe that works out for you, but Bremner's got to win a game then. And
Yeah.
Bremner's got to actually go out there. Again, he's 3-4 this year. I don't love pitcher wins. I think it's not a helpful stat unless you're an eighth, where it's your job to be the guy on the staff that gets the team a win. And he hasn't been able to do that this year. So I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully you take care of business at Fullerton, you get to the 3 seed, and then you have the bye into the round robin. But there's a lot of work left to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like it also depends on who the possibility of we're going to play in the round. Like if we're going to match up against Cal Poly, I think you throw Bremner in that single elimination because he was the worst of the three pitchers.
Yeah.
Because you want Jackson Flora because he threw a shutout win with only one hit. Calvin Prosky did really well in the series against Cal as well. But if you are facing any other team, I think you go between Bremner and Flora. I think Prosky has to pitch in the. I think that is.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that is without a doubt, your guy. You at least your own
Right. Game
the
one of the
one
round
guy.
robin to
Yeah,
get yourself into the winner's bracket. Right. You
yeah,
want Prosk going.
yeah. So I think it's ultimately between Flora and Bremner,
Hmm.
unless we're going up against Cal Poly after the elimination game. Then I think you throw Bremner first because he did not
Uh,
do well.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Right. With that, we are now going to go into the NFL draft. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, the draft just concluded this past Saturday. A lot of, not so much a lot of noise as we've seen in recent years. The biggest noise was obviously the story of Shador Sanders, who, I mean, if this isn't the first podcast you've listened to today, or you've already heard so much stuff on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you get your sports media news from, this is going to be like the 150th time you hear about this. But Shador falls out of the first, goes to the fifth round, I believe.
Yeah. Fifth round,
144th
144.
pick. Yeah. Got picked up by the Browns, who we all knew he was going to go to. I mean, he was projected to go to the Browns. The Browns saw him. I think Deion Sanders said that the Browns were one of two teams Shador would play. So it's kind of like it's anticlimactic, but now the Browns find themselves five quarterbacks,
Yeah. I
all of
mean,
which who can be starters.
the guy who has a jersey with all the Browns quarterbacks on the back of it
Yeah,
is like he's going crazy right now.
yeah,
He gets to add so many more, but I think right now you can kind of assume Watson is on the IL effectively to start the season. Kind of can throw him out. So then you're left with four still, which is still too many. With Joe Flacco, I think, who is your day one starter, and then Kenny Pickett, who you just traded for, Dylan Gabriel, who's your third round pick, and then Shador, who's your fifth round pick. Who's the odd man out there? I mean, you don't want to, like, you're going to have to probably cut one of those guys come, game one. And it's like, do you cut Joe Flacco? No, he's the one veteran guy in there who you can kind of sort of trust. He led you to the playoffs 2 years ago. You cut Kenny Pickett. Well, you just gave up stuff to trade for him. You cut your third round pick to save your fifth round pick. How could you possibly do that? You'd look crazy. But like, I don't know. It's just they're in a terrible spot because of the Cleveland Browns. But I mean, I think the pick that irks me the most is the Dylan Gabriel pick because first of all, I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. He's not big enough, and I don't think he excites you as a prospect to be a starter in the NFL one day. I think he could be a backup at best. But if you didn't take him and then you got Shador in the fifth round because he fell so much, you could say, all right, you know what? Shador, he's not the same type of prospect that everybody thought he was going to be when he was projected second overall, but he'll sit behind Flacco for a year, and then he'll mature a little bit, calm down with the media, and he's our guy moving forward. Pickett's, our big backup. That'd be a plan. They just don't have that right now. So I don't know. It's so Browns. It's so Browns.
Oh, it is, and I'm starting to think, and I agree with you. I think Shador and Dylan Gabriel, and even Kenny Pickett, still fairly young in the league, but I'm thinking if the Browns, I feel like the Browns could have easily got Shador at third, but or at in the third round. But I feel like they waited to draft him in the fifth round because they don't want to pay him first round pick money. I think it's a financial move. But then if you knew you were going to get him in the fifth round, why pick Dylan Gabriel?
Yeah, I think maybe it's like because I don't know. In my mind, what happened is Shador, again, all that comes with him, the brands and the media and the controversy. If he was a true, tier one quarterback prospect, that wouldn't have mattered. We saw that with like Johnny Manziel. He still went really high, even though he was literally on cocaine. Like teams didn't care because he was just that good of a prospect. Um, Clearly, again, Shador comes big. He didn't win at a school like Colorado, and he doesn't have like those NFL tier one quarterback traits. Like he doesn't project. He's a pocket passer that is good, but I don't think he projects as like a top 10 NFL quarterback anytime soon. And he's not really like a project where like he's got a really high ceiling. You just need to wait on him. Like I think he's just kind of who he is right now, and he could get a little better. But I think he's got a ceiling on him. So so teams view him as, all right, maybe he's more of a backup quarterback in the NFL than a starting quarterback, or maybe he has, he just doesn't have that potential. So then he drops. And then once you start viewing him as a backup quarterback, teams say, all right, well, in what world would we ever want our backup quarterback to have this much publicity? Like that's just terrible for a locker room. So maybe that's what the Browns are thinking too, along with the rest of the league. They write him off, and then you get Gabriel in the third pick to be let's sit him behind Flacco or Pickett for a year or two and see what happens and build him up because he does have a ceiling. But then Shador keeps falling, and they're like, well, okay, now it's in the fifth round. Like, all right, let's change our mind. We might as well. We're giving up so little, a fifth round pick. Like, what's the harm? I guess like that's the only thing that makes sense to me if you're a front office guy in the Cleveland Browns. But still, like you'd think once he drops to the third round, he's going to keep dropping. But I don't know. It's crazy to me. Maybe they thought, the Steelers still haven't picked a quarterback. It's round 3. They'll get him in round 3 or 4 or 5. But then once they didn't, they were like, all right, I guess the Steelers really aren't taking him. I don't know.
Yeah, and now, I mean, obviously the Browns were one of like 4 or 5 teams that absolutely needed a quarterback. But why during the draft, after the Shador pick, did you not trade Dylan Gabriel?
It's a great question. That's a great question. Well, why couldn't have you given him to a team like the Steelers, who, again, literally don't have a quarterback on their roster right now, not named Mason Rudolph? Like that's who. Like clearly, they need multiple quarterbacks in that room. Why not? Like they can still. I mean, I think they're gonna get Aaron Rodgers. Like they're just waiting for Rodgers. I think that's the only thing that makes sense if you're the Steelers. But you still need another quarterback. Like why not trade? Like I have to imagine that they could have given Gabriel to the Steelers for a future third or something, and then they have their backup quarterback this year, their backup quarterback this year. Once you know you're going to get through Shador. So it just really doesn't and maybe that trade is still coming, but it just right now it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and now you have one big quarterback battle. Because, I mean, it seems like Joe Flacco's going to be the day one guy.
I'd imagine.
But it could be Kenny Pickett also. I could see him starting. I mean, does Dylan Gabriel and Shador prove that they can be a starter? It's such a Browns thing to do, too.
Yeah.
Like, I could see Shador starting out of all these guys. And then when Deshaun comes back, he's the backup.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is, too, like, I'm operating under the assumption that I think Flacco has the best odds to be your day one starter. If I'm a bettor, I'm betting money on that. But if that's the case, at the very least, he's your backup. He's getting first or second team reps. Like there's not enough reps to go around in the preseason to have a real quarterback battle between 4 guys. Like that's just too many. Like you're hard pressed to find enough reps for your quarterback 3, let alone a battle between your quarterback 3 and 4. Like I don't know how you evaluate that. Like I don't know how you have enough reps to evaluate that if you're the Browns. Like they put themselves in a very difficult spot.
Yeah. I mean, but like we keep saying, it's such a Browns thing to do, and this is why they're not going to be good anytime. And then what happens when Deshaun Watson comes back?
Who knows?
With all the controversy around him, are you going to trade him? No one really wants him. Are you going to cut him? Is that why you drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shador for that situation? There's so many questions that we won't know the seasons. But knowing the Browns are going to keep all, I just know it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think Watson, right? You can keep him on the restricted list or whatever it is while he is healthy. You don't have to worry about that roster spot. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could go maybe, I don't know, send one back. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns just every other game, just a different quarterback thrown out there. Why not?
Yeah. Sticking with the Sanders family, I want to just talk very quickly about Shiloh Sanders, who a story came out right after the draft ended that he had his father, Deion Sanders, as his agent, but once he went undrafted, fired his dad as his agent, got with a new agency. 15 minutes later, signs with the Bucks.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, now you can link that to Shador. Did Shador fall because of Deion Sanders? I almost think it's like a LeVar Ball situation. Lonzo.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange because I think it absolutely, again, I think it goes back to that. You just know being represented by Dion, being in that family, like there's going to be so much publicity. I mean, specifically for Shador more than a Shiloh. There's going to be so much publicity. And if teams genuinely didn't evaluate him as a stud, then it's just, we're not like, again, like my Giants desperately needed a quarterback to build around in the future. And Shador was not on their board. Like they were always going to go with Dart. Like he wasn't and I think a lot of that is just because you don't want that media in your room, especially with all the crap that the Giants have had to deal with over the last year. So it's really interesting. I think it absolutely hurt him. And just the whole media side of it all, just how public everything is with that family. I think it definitely hurt him for, not that it's right that it hurt him, but I think it definitely did.
Yeah, and speaking on the Jackson Dart thing, it there was reports saying that Shador had a very poor pre-draft meeting with the Giants, which
Yeah.
led them to draft Jackson Dart. Obviously, we don't know exactly what went on. They said that there was some stuff that happened in the interview that Shador had to prepare for, prepared some like play packages that he didn't prepare for, and they didn't like the way he went through the motions with. So, they ultimately went with Jackson Dart, who I don't hate. That's a
Yeah.
pretty decent pick. I mean, better than Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think his floor is very similar to a Daniel Jones, which terrifies me. I think like that is his comp, his floor comp, which is horrifying. But no, I think he's definitely better than a Daniel Jones type. It hurts that they had to move up. They didn't give up a lot, but it does hurt me a little bit that they had to move up back into the first round to get him. Although I will say it feels like the Rams were definitely looking at Dart with that next pick. They moved up one pick ahead of the Rams. As soon as the Giants moved up and took Dart, the Rams traded back out. So if the Rams were interested, if Sean McVay liked Jackson Dart, that makes me like him a whole lot more. That makes me have a lot more faith. But I think there's a world in which the Giants hands down win this draft. Like similar to like a Texans thing when they drafted Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, and you found your stud defense and offense guy for the face of the franchise, defense and offense moving forward. Like Abdul Carter, I think it is going to be a guy who will be the face of your defense. You have an identity. You have an incredible defensive line now. You're getting so much pressure. I think Carter is kind of a can't miss prospect. And then if Brian Dable gets a year and just develops him, I do not want Jackson Dart to see any starter minutes this first year. I just want him to sit behind, learn from guys like Russ and Winston, just take it all in, let Dable coach him up. If he can, kind of come to the ceiling of what he can be, the thing that he's shown flashes of, just a really great passer, mobile. If he can do that next year, and then you have your quarterback, I mean, this is incredible. And then not to mention, you got Cam Scatterbo later there. The defensive lineman they took in the third round fell to them, was really good. Marcus Embo, offensive guard, fell all the way to the fifth round. He was projected top 70. So a fantastic draft for the Giants, barring Dart turns out to be a pretty good quarterback. Again, there's also a way where Dart's a total disaster. He's like a Daniel Jones. And no matter how many of those other guys hit, you're still going to suck because you don't have a quarterback next year. But I'm going to choose to look on the positive side for my Giants.
Well, I was gonna ask later in the episode, how did the
Sorry,
Giants
I
do?
jumped the gun.
But I mean, we're already there. we can count that, but I want to touch on the Rams situation and how they traded up potentially to get Jackson Dart. Um, I feel like I know why they did that because Matthew Stafford's getting old. There was
Hmm.
rumors of him getting traded. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously is a definitive backup. I mean, he can still be a starter on certain, but you want to get Jackson Dart playing or not playing, but learning under those two great veteran quarterbacks, and he would be your future QB. But obviously, the Giants took that idea from them. Now
Yep.
he's going to be learning under Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson,
Yeah,
which
I saw a meme where it's like Russ is going to be the angel on one shoulder and Winston's going to be the
the
devil on
devil.
the
That's
other,
so
coach him.
funny.
Right?
That's so realistic too. Like Jameis Winston's gonna have some like sideline antics, and then Russ is just gonna be serious.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting year, I think, for the Giants. But I mean, I do like what they've done. Like, I think they stay afloat. They have like the hardest schedule of football this year,
Mhm.
which sucks. But I think like Russ keeps them competitive. I think you have a top three defensive line in football now, so like that keeps you in games as well. And then just do enough so that Dable and Shane keep their jobs. Then you can keep building next year, and you hope Dart is the guy. Then I finally have like there's a future that there just hasn't been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if HBO has picked who they are gonna do for the in season or not. I would love to see the Giants.
They can't go on the Hard Knocks anymore, Angel. They can't do it. Not after last year.
No,
It's too
I
bad.
need it again. I need to see Jameis
Please God,
Winston,
no.
Russell Wilson. I need it.
It's going to be an entertaining quarterback room, that's for sure.
Um, let's move up in the draft. Let's go to the second overall pick, who I mean I think came to a bit of a shock in terms of how he got drafted. The
Yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars traded up to draft Travis Hunter. So he goes back to his home state of Florida, where he also played college, played at Jackson State with Deion Sanders and Shador and Shiloh before transferring with them to Colorado to follow Deion. He's now playing for Trevor Lawrence. He's his quarterback. You have a new coach who was the offensive coordinator for the Bucks. He seems really passionate and excited. It reminds me a little bit of like a Dan Campbell, but a more laid back tone. Like Dan Campbell is really serious and hard
Okay.
and but still passionate.
An offensive version of
Yeah,
Dan
but
Campbell,
he
kind of.
this
Yeah.
dude is
Okay.
like really passionate and just loves the game, but he's a bit more like let the players come. He's more of like he's more personable. It feels like not saying Dan Campbell isn't. Dan Campbell seems like a guy I want him as my coach, but he just seems like a laid back offensive minded dude.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an awesome landing spot for Hunter. I think genuinely, like I know you always want to pick a winner of a trade. I think this is going to end up being a win-win kind of deal because the Browns got an absolute haul from the Jags. I mean, you get the fifth pick, obviously, which they use to take Mason Graham, awesome prospect. And then you get next year's first, you got the second, you got next year. I mean, they got a ton of draft capital. Again, they're going to have to use it right, which is saying a lot for the Browns, but they got an absolute haul. But I think if you're the Jaguars, you make that trade again because this fills the exact two biggest needs that you had on your team. They desperately needed a quarterback, and they had an awful pass defense last year, so this certainly helps that. Hunter's an awesome quarterback prospect. Then they really needed a wide receiver too behind Brian Thomas. Boom, you got both guys in one. Like I think it's understandable to give up that much draft capital because it's kind of like you're getting two players. And I think what they've said, doing Hunter primarily on offense, then throwing him out there for a bunch of defensive packages, nickels, stuff like that, putting them all over the field, I like a lot. I think being able to be the number two in an offense next to a Brian Thomas Jr., I think that will also help Travis Hunter a ton. And I think I like him as a quarterback prospect even more. So then he can kind of eat on that side of the ball too. But I love it. I think this is now a really fun offense. And just from Hunter's perspective, going from being the guy in the Browns running a wide receiver room, being thrown balls from Flacco or Dylan, who knows, to Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback, standing next to Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, God, with Liam Cohen as their head coach, you got to feel really good if you're Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing for Travis Hunter that I'm scared for is having Trevor Lawrence at back.
Okay.
Been very up and down, but but now I mean all eyes are on Trevor Lawrence. I've been
Yep.
seeing so many posts saying that Trevor Lawrence doesn't have an excuse now. He has his
Absolutely not.
receivers. He
Yep.
has his guys. His O line could definitely be a bit better, but he has his weapons. And
Yep.
Travis Hunter, although didn't have the best numbers college, only because he played both sides. He's still a great wide receiver too. I don't
Yeah.
know if he can get up to that wide receiver one, especially if he's going to play both sides. But he's a great wide receiver too. He's a great second option, and he would be great in those like nickel packages and certain specific defensive schemes.
Yeah. Right now, he doesn't have to be that wide receiver one. I do think that he could be eventually, but now he doesn't have to be. Now he can take a couple of snaps off on the offensive side of the ball. He could be a wide receiver too, but then you can still play on defense and do your thing there. So I like it a lot.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
I think Trevor Lawrence has been a huge disappointment so far in his NFL career with all the stuff that's going on. So now it's like this is his year to completely ball out and have with now we've got the coach too. Like this is the time for Trevor Lawrence.
I feel like I think the AFC South is going to be the most exciting and fun division to watch going into this year because you have Travis Hunter there with the Jaguars and all that he's going to do. The Shohei Otani of football, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because of his two-way abilities. You have the Colts who are there.
Yeah,
They're there. You have the Texans who have been a great young team under D'Amico Ryans. CJ Stroud is still doing really well. And then now you have Cam Ward throwing to Tyler Lockett, who signed with the Titans just about a month ago, less than a month ago. So it's really it's going to be fun to see these new draft picks playing in their new roles, throwing to seasoned veterans, catching balls from seasoned veterans. It's a young and fun conference or division to watch.
yeah, I agree. And it's just so wide open. Like, yeah, the Texans are probably going to be the favorites because they won it the last couple of years, but they took a step back last year, and so and now these other teams are taking a step up. Like, it's going to be. I wouldn't be too surprised if any one of those teams, besides maybe the Titans, I could see any one of those teams winning the division.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think any of those teams but the Colts
Okay,
has a chance. I don't think the Colts are. They're
fair.
they're like
They need Richardson to show them something, like to
yeah
just have that accuracy be
yeah
average instead of the worst in the league, and then
yeah.
they have something.
I think they're like a step up from the Browns. Like if the Browns got it together, they'd be the Colts.
Okay, interesting. That's fair. I see
Um,
that.
but move away from Travis Hunter. We already talked about the Giants a little bit. Let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers who had reports of them trading back from the 11th pick. I had my big old spotting board connecting them to every pick ever made in the last five. But they ended up sticking with the 11th pick. There were actually John Lynch came out and said they wanted to trade eighth, but if it was the Panthers who didn't want to give up anything, but they still got the guy they wanted at 11 in Michael Williams, who was the first of a plethora of defensive players that the 49ers drafted. I think there was only like three offensive players the 49ers drafted this year. Everyone else was defense. But I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely like time to kind of bolster, rebuild that defense for the 49ers. I don't know how many. They took what, one wide receiver? I think kind of
They
late.
took two wide receivers, one in the fourth round, Jordan Watkins from Ole Miss, and then just a couple picks before Mister Irrelevant, they got Junior Bergen from.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think I would have loved to see maybe a higher wide receiver pick, but I do like what they've done. I think Micah Williams is a really going to be a really solid on the defensive line. I think he's a great prospect. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think 49ers, this is what they need to do. They need to get younger. They need to rebuild a little bit, but they could do definitely a very speed like rebuild because it is the 49ers and they still have a ton of talent.
Yeah. Just going through their picks, it looks like they only drafted five offensive positions. The rest were defense, two receivers, running back Jordan James out of Oregon, a guard Connor Colby out of Iowa, and then the guy who I wanted to mention next, Curtis Rourke, quarterback out of Indiana with the 127th pick, seventh round. Injury riddled quarterback who is recovering from an ACL tear. That's so 49ers to do.
They do love their injury prone players. They really do. I did watch a lot of Curtis Rourke played against my Rutgers Scarlet Knights a whole bunch, and he did. I mean, when he was healthy, he did look really good. Diced us up a little bit. I don't know if he's. Uh, I don't think he's great. Like I don't necessarily know if I love the pick, even with all the injury stuff aside. But he's definitely got some upside.
Yeah, he's. I mean, you already got Brock Purdy. You're
Yeah,
gonna sign him to that multi extension fully soon, fully before OTA start in May, or training camp. Then you have Brandon Allen. I think Josh Dobbs is still there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not positive.
I
Not
don't think
positive
he
Dobbs
is.
is still there.
He's with the Patriots. Okay, so you have Brandon
Okay.
Allen, who has been mid. I don't know. He
Yeah,
hasn't gotten a lot of playing time.
yeah, he's a backup quarterback.
He's there.
He's a fine backup quarterback.
So you have Brock Purdy, Brandon Allen, and all fairly young quarterbacks in your quarterback room. No definitive backup. I mean, I guess you can say Brandon Allen, but Rourke can definitely spot.
Yeah,
But now, I mean, all eyes are on Brock Purdy in terms
definitely.
of the quarterback room. And they just signed George Kittle to a 4 year deal. Hold on, I want to get the contract uh, stats up. He signed a 4 year, $76.4 million contract extension with $40 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid tight end in NFL history. So, I mean, congrats to him. It's well deserved.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely
now,
deserves.
yeah, but now after, you get Robert Saleh back as your defensive coordinator, which is, I think, why you drafted so much defense.
Yeah,
Defense really, for the 49ers, their defense has been up and down. They have great defensive pieces in Fred Warner, possibly the best defensive player in football, without a doubt, the best linebacker.
yeah, definitely.
Dre Greenlaw, who just got injured again. I think he has a torn. He's gonna miss a whole now. Which um, you have Mustafa, who got injured, and I think he might miss the season. You're getting Diamador Lenore back, but then you lose guys like Talanoa Hufunga and um, Charvarius Ward. Great for you, secondary, but you're getting them back. You're getting new younger pieces. So I
Yeah,
don't I don't I get why they're doing it, but it's gonna be a tough hill to climb to get back to where you were in terms of defense these last couple of
yeah,
a couple years ago, and back to that great defensive roster in the 2018-2019 season, or the 2019 season when you went to the Super Bowl first time in Miami. Had Nick Bosa, Drake Greenlaw,
yeah.
all those guys. It's going to be interesting to see what the Niners. I'm really iffy. I really don't know
Okay.
how to.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in a weird place right now. Like, obviously, you have to extend Purdy soon, give him a massive contract. But is he at the same level of those other quarterbacks who have massive contracts? That's a lot of money. You have a team that's always been injury prone. I mean, they're an older team. So I think you need to get younger on the defensive side of the ball, and you hope that also means you're cheaper. And with Salah coming in, that you don't lose too much of that defensive prowess. If he can kind of bridge the gap, because you need to get cheaper, you need to get younger. While still maintaining kind of who the 49ers have been. So it's yeah, they are an interesting spot.
Yeah. And then I forgot who said this, but I saw a clip on Instagram. It's like a little. I don't know if it was Cam Newton. It could have been Cam. They said if the 49ers sign Brock Purdy at super max extension, their Super Bowl window. If they sign him for a little less, probably $30 million range instead of the 50, their Super Bowl window stays open. I
I
don't.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I don't know if I fully with that, but I do like I'm like 97% there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not named Patrick Mahomes, got quarterbacks who make the top amount of money, basically in that top tier of contracts, don't win Super Bowls. I mean, it's not the way to build a roster. It just hasn't worked unless you're a generational talent. It's just not the winning formula for a Super Bowl. You need to build out an incredible roster and have a quarterback on a rookie deal or on a cheaper deal. That's what's worked. So I think a max to Brock Purdy, like especially with how expensive the 49ers roster is already, you have to lose so many other guys that you just have to hit so big on every single one of your draft picks this year and next year. And that just doesn't happen really in the NFL. So I think cheap quarterbacks is the way you win. You get to the Super Bowl. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and I mean Brock Purdy has been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL since he came in.
Yeah,
I think he's definitely in that top 15, top 10.
top
Um,
50. Yeah, top 15. I'd say for sure.
do I think he's worth 45 to 50 million? Not really. Do I think he deserves it? Kind of, but I see him more as like that 25 to 30 million a year. I do not think he's
Mm-hmm.
on the level. Like you said, only Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, the Tom Brady's and Patrick Mahomes of the NFL are going to get the 50.
Yeah.
Everyone else that is still great should get that 30 million. Everyone else will get less than that. But
Yep.
yeah, and then it also hurts too because the 49ers I think were had the fifth highest salary cap in going into free agency, so they had a lot to work with. But then they traded Debo before I think it was the June 1st or June 15th. No, I forget what the deadline was. It may have been September 15th. There's a deadline where that you have to make. If you're gonna trade someone, you trade before that deadline. It adds on to your dead cap, and
Okay.
they traded Debo I think a month, so that hit their salary cap hard because now they have to pay out Debo's contract. So they were only left with like 7 million cap room when they were going to go into the agency with like 32.
That hurts.
So yeah, they were projected to go out and get all these defensive guys. They were going to give Joey Bosa a good contract. Go out and get these other decent wide receivers. Then Debo wanted to trade, trade him early, and now you're not left with the
Yeah. Tough.
yeah. And the Joey Bosa thing hurts too because he went to the Bills for $2 million more. Hate that. But here's what it is.
Things.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Giants for a little bit. I know you talked about them. Talked about how do you overall? How are you feeling about their future?
Yeah, I'll tell you, really good. Again, it's going to come down to that dart pick and how good he is, obviously. But I think, you know, that huge question mark aside, I think the talent they got is fantastic. Now, again, you have such a good defensive line, adding Abdul Carter, and gosh, I forget who they got in the in the third round. I forget his name. It was some defensive lineman.
I have Darius Alexander out of
There it is,
Toledo.
Darius Alexander. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's got again like a prospect, but it's not like he needs to start or anything because they have so much depth now on that line. But you got a bunch of guys up there. I think now the running back room of Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterbo is so exciting. Like the little thunder and lightning that all these NFL teams love to do. Like Cam's going to run everybody over. Tyrone Tracy like can catch the ball, really speedy. He looked great last year. You still have Theo Johnson as a tight end. I really like him. I think he's a good blocking tight end. He can catch. He projects well. You have Malik Neighbors, who's one of the best wide receivers in football already. It's just a matter of now it's that secondary. Can those young players continue to grow? And then quarterback, I mean, I think Russ now gives you a very solid floor. And I think they could be maybe an average team next year, which is such an improvement. But then the real goal is the year after. And again, like I saw a lot of people, I don't know, maybe it was RG3 who tweeted out, like, you sign Russ, you sign Jameis, and then you draft a quarterback. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. But, like, you sign Jameis Winston for 2 years. He's your backup for this year and next year. You sign Russell Wilson to be your starter this year. It's a 1-year deal. And then Dart sits behind them this year and is your starter next year. It's a very clear plan, which the Giants haven't had in a while. I think besides extending Daniel Jones and giving him all that money, Joe Schoen has been a fantastic GM. And again, that's a big asterisk because it was such an awful decision and it set the franchise back years. But besides that one awful decision, all of his draft picks have hit. A lot of the free agency moves I really like. So I think they are set up now a little bit for not the near future, but the future.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Giants fare in, especially now with the very much more competitive NFC East that has gotten a lot harder. Years. I mean, they were a couple of years ago. They were like touted as the easiest conference. It's either the Cowboys or the Eagles. But now you have Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. The Cowboys are still on the up. Eagles coming off of a Super Bowl. And then now you have the young Giants going out and doing very well in the draft. Arguably the winner of the draft. You can say one of the top 5 draft classes.
I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that mix of young and veteran talent that they have. Obviously, a lot of vets in Russell Winston. Your new guys in Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Darius Alexander. Might as well just mention the rest of them. Marcus Mbao.
Yeah. Offensive guard. He's a cool prospect. He's so great. Again, like the Giants got like some lunatic. Dart refuses to slide. He's insane. Scatterbo is obviously ridiculous. He just runs everybody over. And then Mbo, like the way he blocks, he like literally just like throws haymakers out there on the field. It's hysterical.
And then you got a tight end in the 7th round in Thomas Fidone II out of Nebraska, and then Corey Black, cornerback out of Oklahoma State. Very solid. Very solid draft. But with that, I think that is going to do it for the 10th episode of Beyond the Sideline. Now the official longest episode, back to back with the long episode.
You can't keep us off the mics. You just can't keep us off the mics.
Thank you all so much for listening. Jake, thank you once again for coming on. Pleasure as always. This will go live on Friday when you're hearing this. It will be Pacific 5 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world, whenever you're watching this. Thank you all for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts under the name Beyond the Sideline. We hope to come back more episodes every Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. So much for listening.